Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Kyle. I'm 38 years old, and up until 5 weeks ago, I thought I had a solid marriage. Christine and I had been together 9 years, married for 6. She worked as the vice president of marketing at a biotech startup. Smart, social, ambitious. I handled strategy and infrastructure at a cybersecurity firm I helped build from the ground up. We're the kind of people who look like a power couple on LinkedIn. But success is a funny thing. It doesn't shout when it slips away. It just changes shape, like Christine's late nights, new passwords, the way her phone never left her hand. I wasn't paranoid. I'm trained to notice patterns. That's what I do, in networks, in risk profiles, in people. It started small. She said she was flying to LA for a brand leadership retreat. I offered to book her seat using my miles. She declined, said she already had it handled. Then she packed something tight and low-cut. Definitely not conference room material. "Who's going to be at this retreat?" I asked, casual. "A few execs, some media partners." "You wouldn't know them," she said. Her tone was light, but clipped. I nodded. "Safe travels." That week, I had my own pressure. We were in the middle of a high-stakes merger review with a major firm. If the deal went through, it would push us into a new tier. Bigger clients, international contracts, full-scale expansion. I was overseeing the encryption protocols and compliance infrastructure. My team was locked in, working around the clock. Still, I made time. I texted Christine each night, got short replies, a selfie from a networking dinner that looked more like a private lounge. Something wasn't right. But I didn't say a word, not yet. Because when you work in security, you don't chase shadows. You wait for the breach, and something told me mine had already happened. Christine flew back from LA on a Thursday. She walked in like nothing had changed, hugged me, kissed my cheek, said the retreat was exhausting but productive. I nodded. "Glad you're home." The next morning she left early, claiming she had a budget review with her CFO. I worked from home that day. She forgot her iPad on the kitchen counter. Christine never forgot devices. Ever. That alone made me pause. I glanced at it, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. A calendar invite was open on the screen. Spencer Cross, 11:30 a.m., Hotel Langford, room 1508. Spencer Cross. I knew the name. He used to be in tech leadership. Now he was floating around as a consultant for one of the firms circling the merger we were working on. The kind of guy who showed up when sensitive data started leaking. I tapped into her email app. No passcode. That was her second mistake. I scrolled fast, focusing only on subject lines. One caught my eye. "Files from Kyle's laptop. See attached." The body read, "This covers the security schema and access privileges. You'll need to scrub metadata before the meeting. I'll handle Kyle. He's not suspicious." The sender was Christine. The recipient was Spencer. Attached was a stripped-down version of our internal infrastructure map. My infrastructure map. The one I built. The one locked behind biometric access. Except the export she attached didn't come from her laptop. It was from mine. I stood up, walked to my office, and checked the logs. Christine had used my laptop the night before her flight. Just checking email. She'd copied files using a USB-C patch, one I hadn't seen in months. And then, like a cherry on top, I found a message from Spencer. "That dress last night, dangerous. Can't wait to see what you wear in DC." They had another meeting planned, and she wasn't even pretending to cover her tracks. I'd noticed weeks ago she'd stopped wearing her ring around the house, said it was getting loose and she didn't want to lose it. That was the excuse. This wasn't just infidelity. It was theft, treason in a marriage suit. I didn't punch walls, I didn't scream. I sat down, opened a secure terminal, and started building a trace. Christine wasn't going to know what hit her. The thing about revenge is, if you feel it, you're already losing. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I called Leo Turner, ex-NSA, the kind of man who doesn't need explanations, just objectives. We'd worked together years ago on a joint task force. He knew how to disappear, how to find people who didn't want to be found, and how to keep things clean. I told him the essentials. Christine had accessed confidential files from my laptop and sent them to Spencer, who was then working with a rival company involved in the same acquisition we were negotiating. It was espionage, plain and simple. I needed confirmation of the handoff, real proof, something actionable. Leo understood immediately. No questions, no hesitation. He was in. We traced the file's IP path. Spencer had opened it from a hotel Wi-Fi node in LA. Same night, Christine claimed she was out with her team. Leo pulled the session metadata. Spencer had used a burner laptop. Christine had sent the file from a coffee shop near LAX, routed through a public proxy. Sloppy. We had enough to act, but I didn't want to make a move yet. I wanted more, something that would end this without a shadow of doubt. The next move was mine. I looked through Christine's phone while she was in the shower. Notifications were still coming in. One of them was a message thread with Spencer confirming everything. Room 1508 again? Same time? 12 o'clock sharp. Can't wait. I didn't have to do anything. Their meeting was already planned. All I had to do was show up differently. I created a decoy file loaded with trace beacons and a passive exploit. If Spencer tried to open it, we'd have his full device signature and GPS lock. That morning, I dropped off a small velvet box with the Langford concierge addressed to room 1508. No return name, just instructions to deliver it shortly after noon. Christine was busy planning her next lie. I was already planning her ending. The Langford Hotel sat on the edge of downtown, a boutique place with marble floors and overpriced espresso. They thought it was just another rendezvous. It wasn't. Leo was set up nearby, monitoring Spencer's device activity. I sat in the cafe across the street with a clear view of the lobby. At 11:44, Christine walked in carrying her tote bag. She didn't go to the front desk, just headed straight to the elevators like she'd done it before. At 11:46, a text lit up on my phone. It was from Christine. "Hey babe, running late. Can we do sushi tonight?" I didn't respond. I had something better planned. At 11:48, Spencer walked in. Tall, slick, composed. He looked around casually and headed toward the elevators. Leo's voice crackled in my earpiece. His phone's already pinged our beacon. Decoy files live. By the time Spencer stepped into the elevator, his laptop had silently uploaded its system registry, hardware specs, and 3 years' worth of email headers to our private server. At 12:10, I walked into the lobby and headed to the front desk. I'd already arranged the delivery with the concierge that morning. "Has room 1508 received the package I left earlier?" I asked, deadpan. The concierge smiled. "Yes, sir. Hand-delivered 10 minutes ago." Inside the small box was her wedding ring, the one she'd stopped wearing weeks ago. I'd kept it in my desk drawer, knowing this moment would come. Beneath it, a note. I saw everything. The exit's in the mirror. I stepped back outside and returned to the cafe. Through the glass, I saw the elevator doors open. Christine burst out first, eyes wide, clutching the velvet box in one hand. Spencer followed close behind, saying something sharp. She was still zipping her blouse. Her face was pale. She turned her head and locked eyes with me across the street. I raised my coffee cup. She froze. I smiled. For once, she had no script. Then I stood, walked calmly to the corner, and got into Leo's car. We didn't say a word. He just pulled into traffic and drove. Christine came home that night at 10:41 p.m. She didn't say a word when she walked in, just dropped her purse on the console table and stood in the entryway, staring at me on the couch. "You hacked me," she said flatly. "No," I replied. "I followed the trail you left, and it wasn't hard." She crossed her arms, but the confidence was gone. The performance mask she always wore, gone too. "You don't understand what's really going on," she tried. "I understand perfectly," I said, standing. "You used my laptop, stole my firm's encryption strategy, sold it to Spencer Cross, who's working with a direct competitor of the company we're negotiating with. You used me to get access." Her jaw clenched. "I didn't sell it. I just handed over information." "That wasn't yours to hand over," I said, stepping closer. "And you didn't just betray me. You committed a federal crime." She looked like she might argue. Then she saw the manila folder I picked up off the coffee table. "These are the timestamps, Christine. The emails, the file transfers, the IP logs. I've already backed it up to 2 external drives and 1 offline vault." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What do you want?" "I want you to sign these divorce papers," I said, placing them gently in front of her. "Tomorrow morning you'll submit your resignation to your board and disappear quietly. Or I walk this into the Department of Justice." Her hands shook slightly as she flipped through the documents. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious in my life." She blinked. "And if I do what you say?" "I'll keep your name out of the official complaint. Spencer takes the hit. You lose everything, but you stay out of prison." That's the best offer you're going to get." She sat down, the fight gone from her body. "You were never supposed to find out." I leaned in. "You were never supposed to be this sloppy." Then I walked out of the room, leaving her with the folder, the papers, and the sound of her future evaporating. Christine signed the papers the next morning. She didn't cry, she didn't beg, just signed her name and slid the folder across the dining table like a failed contract. By noon, her resignation hit the wire. "Personal reasons," the statement read. I knew better. So did a handful of board members at her company who'd already seen the evidence package I anonymously leaked through an encrypted channel. Spencer Cross? He disappeared fast. Leo sent the beacon logs and device fingerprint to the legal team at the firm he was working with, the one already under investigation for another breach. They cut ties with him before I could even file charges. Christine moved out within a week. No fights, no drawn-out goodbye, just silence and a few cardboard boxes left behind. 3 days later, the company we'd been negotiating the deal with reached out. They'd heard about the attempted data leak, not from me, but from their own risk monitors, which Leo quietly nudged in the right direction. They wanted to know how I kept the breach contained, how I tracked the mole, how I never let it explode into a scandal. I gave them a cleaned-up version of the events, kept Christine's name out of it, told them the leak had been intercepted, neutralized, and traced back to an outside party who was now no longer active. A week later, the firm I worked for signed a multi-year cybersecurity contract with the company we'd been negotiating with. It tripled our revenue overnight. Our names started showing up on short lists we'd never had access to before. Leo and I decided it was time. We spun off, built a leaner, sharper firm, Brennan & Turner, director, clean, private sector black ops for digital warfare. People trusted us because we didn't just sell protection, we lived it. And as for me, I slept better at night. Not because Christine was gone, but because I didn't lose control. I never lost control. 6 months later, Brennan & Turner had 6 full-time analysts, a client list we used to dream about, and an office overlooking the Boston waterfront. We didn't advertise. We didn't pitch. The work came to us. Because in an industry built on paranoia, reputation is everything. And mine was simple. I didn't flinch when the knife was already in my back. One Friday evening, I stayed late reviewing contracts. At 7:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from a number I hadn't saved but didn't need to. "Christine, I heard you started your own firm. Congratulations." I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without replying. I left the office around 8 and headed to dinner. Not alone. Nora was already waiting near the bar in the restaurant. We'd known each other casually for years. She ran compliance at a firm we used to work with. Sharp, funny, no games. She stood when she saw me, offered a half smile. We ate, talked about work, talked about what comes after starting over. She didn't ask about Christine. She didn't need to. There was something easy about it. No expectations, just 2 people who'd been through enough to stop pretending. It wasn't about replacing anyone or fixing what had already burned. It was about building forward, on solid ground this time. The next morning, I went for a run along the harbor. Clear sky, steady pace, nothing dragging behind me. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's clarity, and I had mine. Thank you for watching.